All right, so we just got back from the pre-trial hearing. It's not a trial; it's a hearing. I called my last video a post-trial thing, and people in the comments were like, "You're dumb," but it's a hearing. Um, basically, Tad and Cole still look homeless.
Mm-hmm.
They still have the mixed colors. They look really homeless. I will say that all of the defendants look not scared anymore, except for what's the new guy, Paul Grice. He looks not scared. He just looks like he looks like how all of the initial four looked at the first trial, just like scared as shit, which is kind of crazy because like this is he's been in this for a while now. So, but he's also the youngest one, so I guess that would probably have something to do with him looking like that.
Probably has the youngest kids too.
Yeah,
that are affected.
One thing I want to point out too is like every time we go in there, like there's the jury, there's the judge, there's the attorneys for everybody, the court reporter who types everything out, and then the prosecutors are there, and like I forget all these people exist. Like as soon as we're done with this video and I upload it by like 12 hours from now, I'll forget about today. But every time I see them, I'm just like, oh shit, yeah, these people are. This is what they do. They just like ruin lives. But I mean, in my opinion, they're ruining like people's lives that need their lives ruined. But basically, today's whole thing was about two pending applications, and that's was one, the return of personal items to the families of Veronica and Jillian. And that, what that means is basically anything that was collected by the state that is not relevant to the case. The families want that stuff back. And I believe the prosecution basically said, like, I don't even think the judge had to rule on that, right? The prosecution was just like, yeah, they can have anything.
I mean, the judge did rule on it. At the end of the day, he had to agree or disagree with it, and he agreed with it.
But initially, like the prosecution was just like, they can have it, you know. But then the only weird thing is the only people who seemed like really worried about that was Tiffany Adams' lawyer, and it seems like they're really worried about stuff that was seized because of this case being sold off or just released to the public without them being notified. I'm not sure why that matters.
I don't either, because they did say, because they mentioned that too about that other stuff. What was it? Like I think what they were talking wasn't it what they were talking about. Remember in the last court how they said they were talking about the custody papers and all that stuff, because that was the only thing that I remember them saying had anything to do with Cimarron County. So again, they were talking about that stuff too, like not wanting it to get out there or whatever. Which the district attorney was like, that stuff is going to stay where it's at until this court is done.
And you can do your own research, anybody watching this, but I'm pretty sure that Tiffany Adams had some issues with some purchases she had made where she hadn't made payments in a while. So I think maybe it could also be with her just trying to keep as many assets. I don't know why she would care. From the side of the courtroom we were sitting on, she looks very chained up, and like it doesn't matter where her belongings are at this point. But I'm not Tiffany Adams, so I'm not sure why her attorney pushed for that. But it sounds like, and then that was the one thing that her attorney said was, he said it's okay that the state is saying we're going to release some of these effects because they're not relevant to the case. But he basically said, as a defense attorney, I don't know if it's relevant or not. It could be relevant to helping defend my client, which, you know, somebody's shooting at us. But basically, like, at the end of the day, like, we just hung out with Veronica's family for like 30 minutes after the hearing. And whenever you're that close to it, you're hanging out with like people who knew these people very well. Like I didn't know these people at all.
I knew Veronica, but not Jillian.
It makes it like more real and stuff, you know. And then I think News Nation was there. They came up, or their camera guy came up, and
that was from News Nation. I thought that was the News Channel 10.
Where's Channel 10 from?
Amarillo.
Oh, okay, so News
because the blonde lady Sydney, she's the one that used to do it, but she took a job somewhere else. And that girl that talked to us afterwards, she's her replacement. So that was News Channel 10. News Nation wasn't there.
Okay, I was gonna say I haven't seen News Nation or Fox the last two hearings, so I don't think there's well, honestly though, I could see why, like, if I was like in production, I wouldn't waste gas sending them to these hearings that we've been going to, because not a lot is happening. So I could see why maybe they would just show up for the actual trial. The other thing on the agenda was the DNA testing that the state's trying to do. Then the only reason that's even relevant is because several of the tests they're going to do is going to consume the entire sample, meaning there's not going to be anything left. So the defense basically couldn't retest it with another expert or something. And the judge kind of, what was his exact? I have like, he had a great.
Basically, he was saying he don't have the right to actually rule on that because that's not in his line of duties for this particular case. Like, he can't say um, one way or another about that because it's out of his jurisdiction. Kind of is how I took it for this particular case.
Yeah, he made a good quote. It wasn't like a
Because
perfect
the
quote.
district attorney was the one that brought it up. Like since there's no actual clear uh, rules, I guess you would say, on
Yeah.
what to do in this situation, that he could possibly rule yes or no, one, for the prosecution or for the defense. But the judge was basically like, "That's not something I'm going to do." I can't remember what his quote was though.
What he said, not an
Oh, he
exact
has
quote.
no power to rule on consumption testing objection. That's
Yeah.
what he said.
So this isn't a direct quote, but pretty much what he said that the court prefers to make findings rather than orders.
Oh yeah, I
He
did
said
see
he's
that.
making findings rather than giving orders, which is nothing a court wants to do. But like kind of how Jessica said, he can. I think this judge is basically saying, and then the crazy thing was he had to do a lot of research. They were digging into a bunch of old cases to see where the law stood on it actually. But basically, yeah, like Jessica said, he was like, I can order anything with all this stuff, but I don't know how much power it'll hold in the big grand scheme of things. Because again, this is just a hearing, a preliminary hearing. This isn't the actual trial. Um, a big thing was
These aren't even preliminary hearings; they're
no,
motions of discovery.
These are just yeah. This is like nothing's happening yet. So I could see why. One thing that I thought stood out was the prosecution, and I don't know where he was kind of going with this, but he said that that Kelly, her husband, has been talking, I guess, and he basically just said that the pastor is like very upset. And what did you get from that? Like it was towards the beginning where he was saying he talked to the
Yeah.
pastor and he
So
said
I
he's
couldn't
upset.
hear him very well, but I just feel like he wants his wife's wedding ring back. It's kind of what I
So
heard him
that was
say.
to do with the okay,
Yeah.
okay. So he's basically but to me, like, and again, there's no jury in there. This isn't a trial or anything, but stuff like that, like hanging out with Veronica's family for 30 minutes and then hearing that like Kelly's husband is like beside him,
Jillian's husband.
Jillian's sorry, and hearing that like Jillian's husband is like beside himself with like sadness, it makes it more real. Like the News Channel 10, I'm not disparaging them. I'm sure they're a great organization, but they had sent a camera guy over to kind of talk to us while we were talking to Veronica's family. He introduced himself. I think he knows them, and then he let them know that the reporter who was originally covering the case was no longer covering the case, and then the only he's just doing his job. I'm not mad at this guy, but he was like, "Can I introduce you to the new reporter?" And the family was like, "Sure, we'd love to meet her." And then he was just like, "Is it cool if I bring my camera?" And they were like, "No, like we're talking about is like we're just introduced. No, we don't need to be on the news like being introduced to a reporter. That's not really a story." But to me, like that's where it gets real, and you start to realize like no offense to anybody watching this, but a lot of people will watch this video. You probably never met either of these people. You're probably a lot like me. At the end of the day, like this kind of I don't know, when you hang out with family and you hear that family members are like processing this, it starts to really feel like maybe this is entertainment for some people. And I don't like that. So like to me that just today was like really about making it real.
Because he
Let me
did mention his camera like 3 times, and Veronica's dad was even like, "You already know the answer to that, pretty much."
Yeah. And then what he said he could rule on, he said he didn't know if it was Stan or not, is basically Tiffany Adams' attorney, and I think it was second by pretty much everybody's attorney there, was that they would like to have somebody on site when they do the DNA testing that would consume everything.
Like their own little
Yeah. Which
qualified investigator.
if it was a state of Oklahoma versus one person, like I could see that, but you have 5 defendants, and then does that mean that you're going to send one person for all 5, or do all 5? Like, how big is this room where they're going to do this testing? How many do we really want to add 5 other people's DNA into the room when we're doing DNA testing where somebody's live? To me, it just
So, and what they were saying, the defense attorneys are saying, like, okay, so OSBI's policy is that nobody other than their own personal personnel that takes care of all that stuff is allowed in there. They have the DA did say they have in the past like recorded their process for the defense or whatever, but the defense is bringing these guys' defense is bringing up that it could be a violation of their due process, and they cited the Sixth Amendment right being possibly violated if they didn't have their own personal investigators in there to oversee what OSBI was doing.
And I can see that because a quote from Tiffany Adams' attorney, again, all these quotes are going to be a little, we were writing, but basically he said the OSBI policy does not trump due process, which again, I don't want to, you know, if I ever go to jail for something like this, like, and I didn't do it, like, I want to have a due process. I want everything to be fair. So you have to respect, the law, even if these people are monsters allegedly, you have to respect that the law is going to give them a fair shot, and if the state does their job, then they'll be, they'll be held accountable regardless. But that was kind of their whole thing, was just basically saying that the OSBI does have this policy, but at the end of the day, this policy should not trump the idea that 5 people are potentially have the death penalty hanging over their head. So they would like to have somebody in the room. One thing I wanted to point out, when you go to court, there's a 2 rows of seating. Like if you're the judge facing out, there's like a group here and a group here. But the very front row of both pews is supposed to be media only. Every time I've ever been there, it's usually filled with media. The last today and last time, uh, back home media was like the only media there. I thought there was another guy there in the media, 2 guys, a guy with longer gray hair and a guy with shorter gray hair with like a bald spot on top. And they always sit in the media aisle, except for today. The guy with longer hair was sitting in the back, and that was, you sure that was, he was sitting next to Tad's mom, which this whole time I thought these guys were media, and I looked at them as such, because they're sitting in the media area. And the last trial and the trial, no, the last trial for sure, they were talking to these guys that I thought were media, were like talking to all of the defense attorneys. I don't think they talked to the prosecutors, if I remember, but they talked to all the defense attorneys, joking, laughing, being jovial, hanging out before the trial, after the trial, not like getting beers. I'm just saying like hanging out openly in the hallways. So today I started to like really question whether or not they were actually media, or why, maybe they're just sitting in the media area, especially with the guy with longer hair being in the back, behind the media row, sitting with Tad. And then Jessica noticed, Tad's mom, Jessica noticed that they both had cell phones on them, which you're not, like, they're very clear, like no recording devices, no cell phones. They both had their cell phones. They had them out during the trial. I mean, I don't think they were recording or anything, but they were like looking at their phones while the judge was in the room, which was kind of odd to us. And then so I asked somebody from News Channel 10 if they knew. And again, this isn't like, I don't know. This is what they thought. They think that they are private investigators on the defense behalf. What are your thoughts on that?
That's what it looked like, because the one that was sitting on the same row as us, he talked to one of the officers, and then the officer went and spoke to somebody else and came back and told him, you'll have to go up there and meet with him. I don't know who him was. I'm assuming Tad, because they were there with his mom. And then afterwards, I don't know if you saw him, but the mom, the lawyer, and the long-haired guy at least were all talking to each other outside.
Yeah. So maybe not. I guess I don't think they're media, but still.
Also, the one with the short hair, the one with the bald, he was carrying off the device that the prosecution gave him in the last court for the discovery. I guess that's what they're going to put all that stuff on.
The external hard drive.
Yeah. So, I mean, they have to be some type of investigator if they're taking stuff with evidence on it.
Let me see. It says typically discovery. What is the law? So basically, Jessica will go into some dates of where they're going to try to start doing things, but all of the attorneys, based on what I heard today, basically did not get any discovery until either late last night or early this morning. And I think 3 of the attorneys said they haven't even opened it because they got it so recently.
They said and that was only half of it.
Yeah, so they said it's 2 terabytes. They said it's half, and Tad's attorney said that it's basically filled with phone calls, interviews, and she's a public defender, right?
Tad's?
Tad's
is the one that's private paid.
Okay, so anyway, regardless of whether she's a public defender or like a paid attorney, she has other cases that she's not. Tad's not her only client, I don't think. And no, we know that because she's all of these defenders. You have 5 people on trial for, you're trying to do it on the same day. That's like a scheduling nightmare. But basically, where was I going with that? I had a great.
All of them had a problem with the date, except I didn't hear her say anything about the date, just that it was too close to be able to go through all the stuff.
Yeah, so that was the point. Basically, she was saying that she was fearful that even if like the next hearing is a month from today or whatever date, Jessica's here in a minute, she doesn't feel like she's going to have enough time. And I think it was kind of echoed by the other defendants' lawyers. Is she doesn't feel like she has enough time to properly go through 2 terabytes of information, especially when you're dealing with your client potentially receiving a death penalty. Again, if your family members with any of the deceased, you're like, who gives a shit? Let them burn. But as like an American, and you hope that if you ever get put on trial, that you get the fairest trial of ever, that would make me nervous too. What are your thoughts on that? Like, as far as a month to go over 2 terabytes of information.
I'm not gonna lie, not really aware of how many 2 terabytes are, but the way they talked, and it's a lot, then probably not. But this is what that just brought to my attention. Do you remember? I don't remember, because Coles is the only one that his preliminary trial date is set, date and time. So I don't remember hearing his lawyer object to
his lawyer wasn't even there. That was the one that was touching his head, and she wasn't there.
I know, but that's part of the team, because she was.
Oh no, yeah, she's the same.
But I'm saying they didn't, because I wrote down who.
No, they didn't say anything.
They didn't say anything about that, or the not having enough time to go over it.
And then he did say that Tad's trial was the 17th.
No, Cole's
trial. So I guess he's now. So Cole's trial is going to be the 17th.
9 a.m. That is his preliminary trial hearing. It's the only one that is set in stone. And so these other dates are going to deal with some of the other stuff. But the one on the 18th of September is to where they're going to decide. They're supposed to be able to have their briefs written on why they are for or against the consolidation of the courts. And so on the 18th, that's when they will decide whether they're all 5 going to have court on the same day, or if they're going to separate them pretty much. I mean, that's when they're hoping to do that. So my big question is, why is his the only one that's set date and time set in stone?
Yeah.
And he didn't have no objections to this, because I wrote it down. Tad's, then I wrote their concerns, Tiffany's, Cora's, Paul's, you know what I mean? And all were the same concerns of not having enough time to go over the evidence that they were just given this morning. But his didn't have nothing to say about it. What does that point to you?
You did ask somebody at the end there. You're like, do you know if he's taking and they were just like, I don't know, but maybe they do know, but I don't know. And I'll be honest, this is just me talking. The longer this goes on, and the more of these hearings I go to, I'm starting to personally think a consolidated trial is going to be a nightmare.
Yeah, well, I do too. The other thing I noticed too, if you notice this, he's the only one that's happy and smiley and laughing and joking in the court. The rest of them are just sitting there solemn face. I've seen Tiffany I've seen Tiffany smirk a few times before,
but again, not defeated.
But I'm saying, why is he so happy, and why is that kind of makes you wonder, why is he so happy, and his is the only trial date that's already going to get started for sure, December 17th. Nothing that happens from this point on is going to affect his preliminary trial starting on December 17th at 9 a.m.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy that he's going to go through. Who knows? Let me see. It says the state shall use their best efforts not to consume without telling a lawyer. That was one thing. Another one is as an American, you do have the right to a fair and speedy trial. I would not call this a speedy situation, but again, we have 5 defendants, so I'm not going to complain. This is kind of. It seems like they keep multiple times in all these hearings we go to. They talk about well, this has never happened before, so we're going to do some digging through some other cases. But a lot of stuff here hasn't really happened in Texas County before, it seems like. So it's all kind of new territory, especially with the judge saying, "I'll make a ruling, but I don't know if it means anything." Let me see.
They actually quoted a law is why he went ahead and ruled on the personal property that Tiffany's lawyer was kind of objecting to them returning to the family, and it's called Marcy's Law. I don't know exactly what that means, but it entails personal property that is no relevance to the case. It doesn't. If they keep it, it's not going to support them in evidence for either side. So, why does it need to be kept? So he did overrule on that objection to that.
One thing I'll say too is the judge did say, because he's trying to get this the 17th. He's trying to get everybody to have trial, have their day that day. But he did say, it's been 60 days since he told them basically that he wanted to have this trial. He wanted to try to consolidate it. So I see the judge's point of hey, it's been 2 months, but you kind of really have to heavily factor in there that they just got discovery this morning. So yeah, if I was in the defendant's shoes, I would be worried that my lawyer, we're this far in, and my lawyer just found out why the state's mad at me. That's a little wild.
And the way I understand it, that is literally just the phone stuff, pretty much. That's not the clothes that may or may not have had DNA on them. That's not the blood samples they took from the trailer. That's not none of that. So that's solely the phone.
Yeah,
the phones.
And Tad's lawyer said there's hundreds of documents, interviews, and again, paraphrasing, basically asking the judge, basically asking yourself, I don't see how I could defend my client. And and defend my client,
Adequately.
adequately with where I'm just learning about his charges today. Let me see. Uh,
I think that's pretty much most of it. I forgot that they had like statements and whatnot like that in there too.
and then Tiffany's lawyer also said, uh, obviously he doesn't want to rush into to any kind of setting a date yet because he just got the information today. But a lot of that is because he's trying to defend Tiffany Adams. But another part is, that made sense was he wants the hearing to have substance because the last few haven't really had any substance. It's just more of a formality of everybody getting together and saying, "Hey, we're still doing this," you know. So I do see the defense like, and again, this is a crazy case involving 5 defendants. OSBI is going to take as long as they need to. It's a lot of information to comb through, but I would be worried about them. And basically, Cora's attorney weighed in on that, saying that they definitely felt like they needed more time to make a decision. So it is very curious that Cole is just ready to go to trial. Like
Yeah,
it looked like he would go to trial today.
they had no objections to anything.
Yeah. Let me see. And then I think somebody said that needing more time to consolidate these might not be a possible avenue to go. Let me see. Part of the prosecution, judgment. Okay, so basically, as far as the returning of the items, and then Tiffany's attorney basically being worried about items being sold off or let go, the prosecutor just basically said, again, paraphrasing, "Judge, you made an order not to do that. It's still in place, so obviously we're not doing that." So like that was kind of cut and dry as far as uh, prosecution just saying like, "Hey, they're worried we're going to do all this stuff, but the judge said not to, and it would be not in our best interest to do that."
Yeah, he said it won't be released or sold until the completion of this trial.
And then Cora's attorney, and I think maybe one more, had said that they might have issues making on the 17th if that were
Yeah,
the case.
it what was the 18th, and that's
18th, yeah.
that was Cora's lawyer, and that was Tiffany's lawyer, because Tiffany's lawyer is also working on the case. It is another possible capital case, and um, they both have stuff scheduled for those dates already. And then the one lady, Cora's lawyer, was like, I just feel like she has the right to have me personally. She must be the main one on the team and not sending one of her colleagues. So they're supposed to actually get together and see if all of them, prosecution and defense attorneys, can all come to one single date that will work for all of them. And then the judge might be willing to change the date. But as of right now, he's not changing it for nobody. He's basically like, figure it out.
Yeah, and then one thing he kind of said, he wasn't being a jerk or anything, but he told Cora's attorney like, this is an unprecedented case. He's like, I can't change the date as of right now. He's like, you are an attorney, you practice law for a living, you're aware that
Yeah.
you get double booked when you have more than one client.
He basically told her that this kind of needed to be her priority case, in a sense, in so many words.
And then Tiffany's attorney basically asked the judge, would you hear out if we were able to all agree on another date? And he said that he would hear it out. But again, as of right now, he is not willing to change the date. He really wants to go forward to that December 17th and 18th dates.
He just basically says he might be persuaded a bit if everybody involved, prosecution
Yeah.
as well, were
Sounds like he was like, if
on the
y'all
same
do all the
page.
work and then
Yeah.
bring it to me, maybe I'll consider it. But at the end
No
of the day,
promises.
this isn't the only case in Texas County. That courtroom is probably filled with people right now for something that has nothing to do with this. Time is money. I get that. Tad did stare at me for the 5th time.
He did?
Yeah, he stared at me again.
I wasn't
Towards the
watching him.
end, I was probably because I was kind of staring at him, but like not. I had. This is the first time I brought something to write with, so I didn't look up a lot. So towards the end, I was like trying to get a good read on everybody, and as I was looking at Tad, he made eye contact with me and stared at me. The first time he did it, I looked away real quick. This is like the 5th time. The second time, I realized he's shackled, so I'm not like super afraid,
Yeah.
So I just kind of held it, but I I knew that guy 20 years ago for like a weekend, like I sold him a guitar like in 1999. I don't think he would remember me from that, but I am a big mouth, so I'm guessing he's probably heard of me. But yeah, he does stare at me a little bit. And then the other thing was just the two guys that were, I guess, I don't know. If you see this, who are you? Why are you sitting in the media area? you shouldn't be sitting in the media area if you're not media, just because that could confuse people like me and make me
I
think
mean,
that
I
you're
did
in
see
the
the ones
media.
tag said OME. I don't know what
I don't know
those
what OME,
were
but I mean,
stand
again,
for, but it was like a badge, like a work badge.
yeah, but again, like they had cell phones in there, and if they are media, you talking to the defense attorneys like and joking, I don't know the laws, but to me it just seems not tasteful. Like I would be leery of any publications that came out of your house, like knowing that you're buddy buddy with, and I don't know if you're buddy buddy, but just from two flies on the wall that are just sitting in there, it looks odd that there's two guys that have been continuously sitting in the media row for this whole thing. One of them was sitting next to one of the defendant's moms behind. What?
And met up with them afterwards. And
What's
from what
going
I
on?
seen, like I'm telling you, from the interaction between the sheriff's officer and the guy, the short haired guy that was sitting on the same row as us, they've got to be some type of something because again, he walked away with the box that has the discovery on it,
Mm-hmm.
and I overheard them say, "Well, you'll have to meet with them up there." I'm assuming the jail. I don't know.
I would just suggest not sitting in the media row because I think it's confusing. I think if I was one of the victim's family members, and then I was told at the beginning of this whole circus that front row was for media, and then I saw people who I thought were media palling around and joking around with the defendant's attorneys, I would be like, what the hell? Like, why are you so friendly with them? Why don't you go crack some jokes with the prosecution, the people who are in this room on me and my family's behalf? So again, like, I don't know who those guys are. If you're not media, you shouldn't sit in media. And I don't know why you guys get to have cell phones in courtrooms. Again, because I would just like to have my cell phone. So like, I don't know why I ruled. I would like, and again, not to record, but I don't like not having my phone on me. It's 2024. So just curious on who those two guys are, who they're working for, and why they're sitting in the media area. Jessica, hit them with some dates, and then just that's all my notes. But anything you want to add, just the floor is yours. Yeah.
So the September 9th, 2024 at 5 p.m., that's when all the defense attorneys have to have their briefs submitted that would either be why they're for having a consolidated trial or why they're against it and whatever reasonings they have for that. They're supposed to have those in by 5 p.m. so that on September 18th at 9 a.m., then the four that don't have a trial date set already can come together, and that's when they'll determine, as far as I'm concerned, that I understood, so they'll determine whether they're going to have consolidated preliminary trials and then therefore set a date for theirs to begin, or if they're not going to, and then to set them each individually. Cole, on the other hand, like I said, has a trial date set, preliminary trial for December 17th at 9 a.m. That's when everything else is going to happen. So this 18th is going to be the date unless they all do get together and they all agree on another date, and the judge does go ahead and give in on that and changes it. But as of right now, September 18th is the next important one, because then you'll find out whether everybody's going to have to go to 5 different trials or one.
I think five at once is crazy.
But I know that I see the reason why they're trying to do the 5. Like Tad's lawyer is the one that said it, because she wants to see if when each of the witnesses goes in and testifies in each individual court, are they going to say the same thing in Tiffany's that they said about the same exact scenario in Tad's and Cole's and everybody else's, because then if they change it up even a word or a sentence, then they can be like, oh, but well, this is what you said on this such same incident. This is what you said in so-and-so's court. So therefore you're not credible.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I can see, which is, I mean, I get it. I guess if I was a defense attorney, I'd probably look into that too, but that's the only reasoning there. But 5 in 1, I still really personally don't know how it's getting kept in Texas County. I figured they would try to take it to the city or something, but so far there's been no talk about that.
But I don't think anybody involved is really, I mean, we're all close to Guyman, but like I don't think anybody involves like a Guyman.
Tiffany owns property here. Adam's hard facing was her family's business. It was here for a long time. She goes to church at the Victory Center.
That's where I went to church.
I'm just saying, like
we got to edit that out. We're not disparaging Pastor Charlie.
I'm just saying, no, I'm not saying anything about the church bad. I'm just saying, like, she has ties in Guyman.
Okay.
You know what I mean? She has property here. They're farmers. All the farmers in the local areas do business with each other. Mm-hmm. Some of them people from over there work in Walmart. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. And if you're on that side, even though you're closer to us in Elkhart, but it's the Texas County side, then guess what? You can be pulled for jury.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying there's been similar cases in small places, just like the unsolved case in Stanton County, Kansas, that it's going to be very hard to find an unbiased jury in such a small place.
But the one in Stanton County, they don't have Mike Golub's body.
Yeah, they don't. But it
and
is
they
very
don't have,
oddly, eerily similar,
but
though.
they don't have like my goal's body, and they don't have tons of cell phone information.
They
So,
did have blood on their
well,
porch.
I mean, that's a crazy case, you know, like that's definitely looking to Michael Gola. But that Rock Chalk chick played my last video on her page, and I had mentioned, I just made a comment basically like, you know, it's really easy to speculate. It's really easy to get your friends together and talk about a double homicide like it's a TV show or something, but it's reality. Those people are dead. Their families will never see them again. They, you know, their kids will never see them again. Kids became orphans. Uh, it's bad, and speculating does no good in my opinion. And in fact, speculation probably does more damage than good in my opinion, because if you're just spouting nonsense, you have no facts to back up what you're saying. You're just spouting things that you think might have occurred. Well, any name that you involve in your story and they have nothing to do with it, you're potentially ruining their lives. You're making people look at them funny when they walk into stores. This is a small town. You know, it's really easy to be from another part of the country and, you know, talk about this area, but, you know, people live here. Speculation, not good. Another thing that was brought up on there was that some sort of idea that like people need to protest and like some type of cover up
Where did that happen?
on that video where she was Rock Chalk had made some things. She was basically just saying like people need to go up there and demand answers, and that this is a cover up. And I'll just say this: like, I don't know this Rock Chalk, and do your thing, girl. Like whatever you do, I no problems. Yeah, but what I will say is this: I don't see a cover up at all. I see 5 people with their elbows, you know, shackled to their assholes. You know, like I saw all 5 of them take little 4-inch baby steps the whole way to the elevator, you know, the whole way out of the courtroom back to their jail cell. I don't see a cover up going on. Again, the trial hasn't started. We haven't seen, you know, the show of what's happening yet. But as of right now, I think the state is doing the best that they can do. I think everybody involved is doing the best that they can do, especially since none of this should have happened. You know, nobody should be involved in this. This is, in my opinion, you know, this is it's if you're in a custody situation, like act as grown as possible. You know, kids don't need to see grown-ups fighting over stuff. You know, it wasn't the kids' fault that 2 people got together and made children. You know what I mean? Like, so my takeaway from this whole thing is I think everybody's doing the best that they can do, considering nobody should have to do anything. This is all horrible. This is all horrible human behavior. None of this should have happened. And if humans would have put themselves in check along the way, this wouldn't have happened. Any like final thoughts for you? Do you have anything else you want to add, or?
I mean, it's a horrible situation, and every time I think about it, it breaks my heart. But I just hope that I have to believe personally that something good will come out of it, whether it saves another mother or father,
Mm-hmm.
whichever the case may be. Then you know it served a purpose. New laws to be brought about so that there is never ever a court that will you know, agree to have somewhere met out like that. Especially in a volatile situation, the cop should always be involved in that.
Yeah.
So, me personally, I think there's another county that holds some accountability for what happened to these women. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I will agree with you in the sense that a lot of people misstepped, but at the end of the day, like I still think that this all is brewed from grown-ups behaving like children.
Oh yeah,
You
I
know,
mean,
like, and at the end of the people are dead, people's lives. Anybody who took these girls' lives, if God sees fit, if justice sees fit, their lives are over as well. So a lot of lives ended that day over, in my opinion,
and
a
multiple
bunch of
children have been
adults
destroyed. I mean,
acting
not
like
destroyed, but
kids,
they've been very damaged by
very
everything.
damaged.
I mean, on both sides of that, on the people that did this, their children that are left behind that have nothing to do at all with what happened. Uh, and the 2 children that just lost their mother and their grandmother for that case. I mean, at some point, I'm not going to say them kids didn't love their grandma, but you know, they've been lost that too.
Yeah, lot of wreckage, a lot of wreckage. That's our report from here. Shout out to anybody who takes this video and then plays it on their channel. Appreciate, for real. I do appreciate that. That's
Coverage for you.
yeah, it's putting eyes on what we're doing here that wouldn't have normally seen it. So we appreciate that. And everybody keep fighting the good fight. We will be back the 17th.
No, the 19th. Wait,
The 9th,
the
right?
18th.
The 18th. Well, what's going? Coles is the 17th though.
Coles is the 17th of December.
Oh, December. Okay, that's where I was. Okay, so we'll be back on
The
the
18th.
18th, and we'll keep you posted. Thanks for tuning in.